News Talk 94.5 WPTI, 96.7 FM WTOB. You're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. This morning in the studio, you have Garrett Ray and Brice Payne. And we are talking about, this morning, retirees in their 70s and the top 5 things they might regret. Good morning, Brice. How you doing?
Good morning, Garrett. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, sir.
Good. We got any plans for Halloween?
Nothing major. At 39 years old, Halloween is not what it was when I was 9 years old. So, it's...
Fair enough.
Yeah, I guess I'll be passing kids or candy out to kids, and that's about it.
Fair enough. Well, I'll be celebrating my birthday as I do every Halloween. It's the greatest day to have your birthday on. So happy birthday to Brice.
That's right.
Anyway, let's go ahead and do this. I'm looking forward to today's show. Retirees in their 70s regret these 5 things about how they could have retired differently. So I think we'll be able to shed some light on what people feel in retrospect they might have done differently had they known what they were doing when they retired. So I'm looking forward to this. But let's go ahead and do our Wealth Guardian Service salute, Garrett. Every week here, we want to start off the show by a quick little thank you to everyone out there who puts on the uniform and the first responders out there for putting the U.S. and Stars and Stripes, Old Glory, in front of everything else, including their families at times. And we know it's a daunting task, and oftentimes it is a underappreciated task. So the least we can do here, right, is just take a moment and extend our warm, sincere thanks to everybody out there who does that for the United States. We do appreciate you here at the Wealth Guardians.
Absolutely.
And Garrett, you've got a better get to know your Wealth Guardians advisor question for us this morning.
Yeah, Brice, I was thinking about it this morning, and, for a lot of people, there's always a certain part of the country or place inside the country that's near and dear to your heart. And I'll go first here. For me, it has to be the southeastern coastal North Carolina area, that Cape Fear River region around Wilmington, extending down to kind of Fort Fisher and then kind of over southern Brunswick County. And it's near and dear to my heart because that's where I spent summers as a kid. My grandfather taught me how to fish in those waters. So I was definitely a water baby. Love the beach. Just love that whole area in general. I think it's beautiful. So,
yeah. I know I've spent some time out there, Beaufort and whatnot, and absolutely love that area to death. And look forward to spending a lot more years getting better to know some of the Outer Banks there. But I guess, I recently did the calculations. I've now lived in North Carolina longer than I've lived anywhere else. I've now lived here for 20 years. But I was I was raised in Colorado. So I love the Breckenridge, Keystone, A Basin, Copper Mountain Vale area of Colorado. That is truly the epitome of backcountry, Colorado backcountry. I love it. So, and I would have skied a lot more in my life had ticket prices not gone up to $80 just to ski down some mountains. So I don't do it as much in my later years as I did when I was growing up, but I was out there on the ski slopes all the time when I was younger. Absolutely. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started on this. Garrett, a random retired YouTuber did a video exploring the top 5 regrets from retirees that he interviewed, and they were all in their 70s. And it blew up to almost 500,000 views and still going out there. So we thought we'd take a little lesson from this. And let's see what regrets made the list. And more importantly, explore what proactive steps you can take to avoid having the same regrets when you retire out there.
Yeah.
So, Garrett, I would say that you and I together sit down with about 50 couples a year who come to the well proactively, call up the Wealth Guardian and say, hey, I'd like to sit down with you for this no cost, no obligation financial review that you guys do with everybody out there. And we do that about 50 times a year. And over the years, we tend to see some trends happening on what people's mindsets were, what mistakes that they did make or what mistakes they were afraid they were making, or where they had errors in mathematical judgment or whatnot. And so that's kind of ties in with some of the results that this person found on YouTube, kind of ties in with what we see as well. And we'll start off with the big one. They wish they had retired earlier.
Yeah.
When I sit down with a couple, or whether it's an individual or a couple for the first time, and they maybe heard us on the radio and they've called us up and said, yeah, I'd like to go through your financial plan review. And I sit down, one of the first questions I ask them is, what brought you at this stage to a financial plan? Or what is bringing you to a financial plan? What do you hope to accomplish out of this? Tell me what's going on in your mind. Big open-ended question here. And there are some people out there who enjoy their job thoroughly, and they don't have any plans to retire. And I mean, great, power to them. I wish we could all be in that position, right? But a lot of them would love to have retired earlier. They're looking forward to when they can retire. That's one of the big answers they want from us. If I want to retire in 3 years, can I retire in 3 years? Am I making a financial mistake by hanging up the paycheck in 3 years? And it turns out a lot of times we can give people some really good news.
Yeah.
That, hey, you know what? Not only can you retire in 3 years and be fine, you could probably retire next year.
Yeah.
Not probably. We tend to be more accurate than that. But it looks like from the numbers that you can retire earlier than that. There are a lot of people out there who don't go to a financial planner.
Sure.
And they worked until 70 years old or whatnot. They let their Social Security accumulate to as large as they could, and then hung up the paycheck and collected Social Security. But they wish, I mean, they see at age 85 how much money they have left, and they realize at that point, by doing the reverse engineering, that they could have retired far earlier than 70.
Yeah.
And that's the number one mistake here. You see that, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's kind of two ways I think about this. Wishing you'd retired earlier. For some folks, that is, hey, I didn't take the steps I should have when I was younger to prepare for retirement, and then they find themselves in their mid-50s suddenly in a panic. But I would say that's actually less people than you would think. The more common scenario is someone who has been plugging away at their job, plugging away at the 401k, doing all of the right things. They just didn't sit down and have someone crunch the numbers for them, lay it all out in an easy to understand scenario and say, okay, guys, you have a choice before you. You could retire effectively within the next couple of months, or sometimes you can keep working. It depends also, too, on what kind of lifestyle do you want in retirement. For most people, they don't want to change up their lifestyle too much. It's kind of some generational things. The greatest generation, so to speak, they lived much more simply in retirement. Now people want to travel. Many people want to have a second home. So a lot of these lifestyle choices takes additional income. The good news is that by starting the planning process, you can get those numbers and those answers, more quickly, so that you're not at the end of your career with a couple of months left to go and you don't have a plan. And, for many people, we do find that when you crunch all the numbers, you can actually retire sooner than you think. It may take some adjustments to your lifestyle in retirement, but if spending time with your loved ones, maybe going on a trip or two with your spouse is important to you, then you're going to be able to find the time and you're going to be able to find the funds and resources to do it. You may have to cut some other places.
You might have to. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray. In the studio this morning is Garrett Ray and Brice Payne, and we're talking about retirees in their 70s and the 5 things that they regret. Now, Garrett, when we talk about retirement, for almost everybody out there listening, one of the main sources of income that they're going to have in retirement is Social Security. Some of us will have pensions. Some of us will have passive income, like they're a landlord or whatnot. Some of them will own a business long after they've quote unquote retired, and they'll have income coming from their part ownership of the business. But everybody out there, almost everybody, has Social Security as one of their main sources of income, not just a source of income, but one of their main sources of income. There is a lot of different ways to file for Social Security. I think this ties in with that first one. They wish they had retired earlier. Well, one of the things that might help us determine whether or not we can retire earlier is by knowing what our different Social Security filing options are.
Sure.
A lot of people, Garrett, and you've seen this as much as I have, a lot of people conflate the day that they retire with the day that they file for Social Security.
Yeah. I've even heard people refer to it, I'm going to file for my retirement.
I'm going to file for my, that doesn't mean anything. There is nothing, you don't file for retirement.
No.
Others will say, when I reach my, what is it they say, when I become full retirement age? Well, full retirement age has nothing to do with retirement. It's a term that Social Security uses of when your full retirement age benefit is a certain amount. But that has nothing to do with retirement. And so one of the things that we want to do to help people understand what retirement will look like so that they can start putting some answers together of, can they retire now? How much can they spend in retirement? Will they be able to meet their legacy goals or of leaving the kids or the grandkids X amount of dollars or whatnot? One of the things that we have to put into those calculations is Social Security.
Absolutely.
Everybody has got hundreds of different ways to file for Social Security. We all think maybe we've got three. I file at 62, I file at my full retirement age, which for most of us is 67, or I file at age 70. Those are the three ways I have to file for Social Security. No, you've got a lot of different ways to file for Social Security. Only one of those makes the most sense for you. So out of those thousands of ways, you really want to make sure that you are doing it right. Because once after a year, you filed after a year, there's no undoing that. That is the retirement or the Social Security funding strategy that you have locked yourself into.
Yep.
At that
you
point.
get 1 year to change your mind, or you can only do it once.
So why am I bringing all this up?
I think because we probably have a seminar about Social Security coming up.
We do indeed. We do this twice a year, and we have our Social Security and Retirement Seminar, and it's coming up on Thursday, November 7th, and again Tuesday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. Garrett, how much does it cost to attend one of our seminars?
It is completely free.
No cost, no obligation, right? But you do have to register because seating is limited.
Seating is limited. It's here at the Broy Hill Annex here in Clemens, North Carolina.
And this is the time, we do this twice a year, and this is the one where we have Hamilton Morales come in, who is the one who certified Doug and myself in the National Social Security Association of Advisors. We are certified with that, and Hamilton was the one who coached us to become certified, and he is very knowledgeable, as Doug says, the walking, talking, breathing encyclopedia of all things Social Security. So if you'd like to sit down and have a seminar explaining to you what Social Security is, how it works, how it's determined, what your benefit is, and the different ways you have to file and the different impacts they have on your retirement, by all means, call us to schedule your sitting down at this seminar. It's, again, Thursday, November 7th and Tuesday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. The phone number to register is 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. If you don't want to pick up the phone and talk to Lynn, you can also go to our website, thewealthguardians.com, and click on the events tab and register that way as well. All right, very good. Well, that covered us on the first one. We've got a couple more to go through here in the second segment, but we do got to take a break. And as always, what do we do on our break? We're going to ask Garrett a trivia question. All right, Garrett, are you ready?
I think so.
All right. On October 26, 1926, in Detroit, Michigan, Hungarian-born performer Eric Weiss gave his final performance. He was a staunch U.S. patriot, supported the U.S. involvement in World War I, and actually put aside his private touring to entertain the U.S. troops abroad. Fittingly enough, he died 5 days after his final performance on Halloween, 1926. And to this day, seances are often held by his fans in Detroit on Halloween in hopes of making contact with him, despite him having made a second career out of exposing psychics and spiritualists as fraud. Who was Eric Weiss, who famously died on Halloween, 1926?
Okay.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this first segment here. Why don't you stick around and see if we tricked Garrett on this one, if you will. You can also catch our most recent episodes of The Vault. I'll remind everybody out there of The Vault on our YouTube channel as well. But stick around, and we'll be back on the other side of this break. This is Brice Payne, and this is The Wealth Guardians. News Talk 94.5 WPTI, 96.7 FM WTOB. Welcome back to The Wealth Guardian Show, where we help you retire the job and keep the paycheck. I'm Brice Payne in the Wealth Guardian studio this morning, along with Garrett Ray. And in this second segment, we're going to continue our discussion on retirees in their 70s and things that they regret about how they retired. Now, before we answer that trivia question that we left you and Garrett hanging with at the end of our last segment, I want to ask you this. Are you planning to retire? Okay. Have you met with a retirement income certified professional who is also a fiduciary? If you have not, I'm going to invite you to take us up on a complimentary view of your current situation. So as certified retirement planning specialists, we are going to put together a customized written plan with strategies for portfolio allocation, income distribution, Social Security filing, and tax efficiency, with the additional benefit of often reducing both the risk and fees of your current plan. So if you put aside at least $400,000 and you want to take us up on this no-cost, no-obligation review, here's how you reach out to us. Give us a call at 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409, or go to thewealthguardians.com. That's thewealthguardians.com to learn more. Let us show you in black and white how to retire the job and keep the paycheck. All right, let's go ahead and go to this trivia question, Garrett. You've had time to think about it here. Here we go. On October 26, 1926, in Detroit, Michigan, Hungarian-born performer Eric Weiss gave his final performance. He was a staunch U.S. patriot and supported the U.S. involvement in World War I and put aside his private touring to actually entertain the U.S. troops abroad. Fittingly enough, he died 5 days later after his final performance on Halloween 1926. And to this day, seances are held by his fans in Detroit every Halloween in hopes of making contact with him. This despite him having made a second career out of exposing psychics and spiritualists as frauds. Who are we doing better known Eric Weiss as?
Well, I'm going to make an educated guess. I'll tell you, I don't honestly know. I'm going to guess it is Harry Houdini.
Okay.
All right.
Outstanding. I deliberately didn't say that he was a magician because that would have narrowed. There's not a lot of famous magicians out there, so that would have narrowed it down too much for you. But absolutely, Harry Houdini passed away on my birthday, 5 days after his last performance. He was hit in the stomach by a fan after bragging that he had incredibly strong abdominal muscles, and it is widely suspected that he actually was subjected to pancreatitis at that time, and that is what killed him. But we don't know that for sure.
Gotcha.
All right, very good. Well, let's go ahead now and continue on this trickery and foolery because of the time of year it is, and go to our second one on retirees in their 70s who regret these 5 things. In the first segment, we talked about they wish they had retired earlier. Garrett, another one is they wish they had spent more when they first retired.
Yeah, it's, in those early years of retirement, we like to call them the go-go years. And, Brice, I'll share a story. This is one of the best stories I've had with a client, and actually it was her suggestion. I just love the way that she kind of mentally segmented her part of retirement. So she knew that her and her spouse wanted to spend a little more, travel a little more in the early part of their years of retirement. So she said, okay, from the date that I retire, I'm going to give me and my spouse 10 years. That's when we're going to travel, see everything we want to see. If there's, that check box that we need to have, that bucket list of items of things, we're going to do it in those first 10 years. Because she had the foresight to foresee, when I get to be around my mid-70s, later 70s, I'm probably going to have to anticipate some higher healthcare costs. So basically what she did is she had a certain budget per month for travel. And then mentally, she was like, okay, when I hit my mid-70s, I'm going to flip that same amount towards preparing for increased medical expenses. And I just liked how, as she was going through the retirement phase, she had segmented off the different sections of her retirement, saying, okay, in these early years, we're gonna live it up a little bit. We're gonna enjoy it. We're still relatively healthy. Our bodies are still relatively young. We're gonna go enjoy it. But I know that later in retirement, I'm going to need additional dollars for healthcare costs. So I just
right. Yeah. It's a lot of people will kind of go into that go, slow go, and no go ideas of living and how much money they're going to spend in different areas during those different time periods. And, a lot of times when we sit down with somebody and say, hey, not only can you retire next year when you wanted to, but you can spend X amount of dollars a month or a year in retirement. Well, if that means that they have $5 million left at age 85, they probably didn't want $5 million. A lot of times,
a lot of people don't.
They didn't want 5. They weren't interested in that. So the question becomes, how much more can I spend in retirement? Or if it's not throughout all of retirement, like the example that you're using, what if we spent more on travel or on something in the first 5 years of retirement? Does that mean that I have to work longer than 1 year from now? And, hopefully we give them the answer, no, it doesn't. But it's just nice having all this math out in grids and tables and charts that people can see and understand.
Well, and Brice, that's, we're happy to do that for folks who sit down with us. Let's say that we do run the numbers and we see that in your 80s, you're going to have a relatively substantial amount of money. We will ask that question, say, okay, how much more could you spend for some additional fun things if you didn't want to have $5 million left over, towards the end of life? We can start doing calculations on how that money could be allocated while you're still around.
Right. Absolutely. All right. We've got a little bit more time here. Let's go to number 4 here. They wish they had taken up a hobby.
Yeah.
The way that our grandparents retired, and oftentimes the way we saw our parents retire, is you're working 40 or 50 hours a week, 1 week, and then you retire, and now you're working 0 hours a week. That is slowly fading out to be the only way to retire, or the main way to retire even. Right. Now what we see happening more and more, and power to the working public for kind of playing their hand and having employers be able to accommodate this. A lot of times people will work 40 or 50 hours a week, and then they gradually retire, meaning that the next year they've talked to their employer and said, hey, I'm going to stick around, but I only want to work 40 hours. I want my Fridays off now.
Sure.
Or whatnot. Yeah. And that is really nice. I mean, we have a lot of clients who have phased into retirement like that, and that is really nice. But the reason that that's so important to people is to suddenly have 40 hours a week of free time that you don't know what you're going to do is hard to people. They don't want to keep working, but they don't want to just sit around the house with nothing to do either.
Right.
So that phasing out of retirement is becoming very popular, but that allows people to ease their way into finding or concreting what their main pastime they would have loved to have been for years.
Yeah.
Whether it's golfing or something else.
Absolutely. It's, kind of transitioning from full-time work to part-time work. We're seeing it more and more. And we always remind folks that, yes, part of retirement is a financial question and a numbers question. The other part of it is psychological. When you do kind of either phase out or in some cases completely stop that career that you've been in for the past 30, 40 years, what else is going to take up the time?
Right.
It needs to be something that's healthy for both mind and body. Otherwise, you're just watching, paint dry on the wall, and that gets a little old after about a week or two. So making sure that you've got a hobby, something to keep you engaged. Volunteerism is a big one. Charitable work is another one that we see. Some folks just like to garden. It's
gardening,
whatever that passion project is for you, find it,
identify it.
Yep. And get engaged, in that year or two before you actually hang it up, because you'll be finding value in your days with that hobby and with that passion project.
Yeah, it is not often and not uncommon that we see somebody delaying retirement, not because they know the numbers say they can't retire. They know that they can, not because they love their job. They really are stressed out about their job, but they don't know what they're going to do in replacement of that. So as Garrett says, if you can figure that out and start setting that in motion to that being a main occupier of your time, or one of the main occupiers of your time when you retire, that is going to make retirement and the transition from working 40 hours a week to maybe working 30 or 20 or 10 hours a week all the much smoother for you. And therefore, you're not pushing it off just because you don't know what else to do. So we really encourage people to kind of consider what is it they're going to do in retirement, and what steps do they need to take now to make sure that that is going to be a successful pastime for them. But the other thing that I want to talk to people about out there before we go, Garrett, because we are running out of time, we talked about this in the first segment, the seminars that we do.
Yep.
And we recently did one on taxes and retirement and how taxes change for people who are, collecting Social Security or no longer collecting a paycheck. But we have our Social Security and retirement workshop coming up. And talk to us about when that is.
Yeah, so that's Thursday, November 7th at 6:30 p.m. And then again, the following Tuesday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. It is located in the Broyhill Annex in Clemens, North Carolina. No cost or obligation to attend, but you do have to register. And you can do that by calling our phone number, 336-391-3409. Or you can visit us at thewealthguardians.com/events. You can register there. Again, no cost, no obligation, but you do have to register to reserve your seat.
Yeah, Social Security, we all know that we're going to get Social Security, or believe that we're going to get Social Security. We've all been told that we have. But a lot of people, that's about all they know. They know that this can be their benefit at age 62, this can be their benefit at age 67, or this can be their benefit at age 70. They think, well, I'm going to retire at age 65, so I'm going to file for Social Security at age 65. And that is really a flawed way of thinking. That might end up being the right way for you to file, but there's a lot of other things that you have to consider. And fortunately, this time when we do our Social Security and retirement seminar, we have Hamilton Morales coming up to lead this discussion on Social Security. And he is one of the heads of the National Social Security Advisor Association, of who we are certified with. And Hamilton knows everything that needs to be known about Social Security. And so if you want to understand what your options are for filing for Social Security, because once you file after a year, you've set that in concrete. There's no way to undo that. And you don't want to make that a mistake being one of the main ways that one of your main forms of income out there. But it's Thursday, November 7th and Tuesday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. Here's our phone number if you want to register, 336-391-3409, 336-391-3409, or visit us at thewealthguardians.com/the events tab. Garrett, anything to add?
No, it's just great to hear it from Hamilton, hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
There you go. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have this week. Well, thank you for joining us this weekend morning. We hope the rest of your weekend is everything you want it to be. This is Brice Payne along with Garrett Ray. The show's The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. And this is 96.7 FM WTOB.